afternoon, John.
Hey, Marty.
Friday, October 9th. We've had a definite change of season up here in Sacramento.
So have we down here. It's cooled off.
Yeah, yeah. We might make 75 today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. Fall is my favorite season.
Yeah.
I like fall.
As you know, I grew up in the Midwest in Michigan, so fall was a definite season, and it
Yeah,
was it was radical compared to California.
and on the East Coast, my experience of fall on the East Coast was just good. Really cool.
Right.
Yeah. So,
We might even say human beings have seasonal energies. Last night in our Rusty Nail Club meeting, several people spoke to what I've heard described as seasonal affect disorder or something
yeah.
like that, where
Hmm.
people actually feel a shift in their own internal energy
Hmm.
when there's a significant shift in not just the weather, but in the length of the day and the night and so forth. But
Yeah, it's sad that it's seen as a disorder and not a progression into aspects of our life.
yeah, well,
uh,
there's several things I got on my list here that we could talk about, and I'll defer to you first and see if there's something that you want to start out with.
Actually, I'd like to hear that list and see where we go.
Well, you and I have been talking about the the collective consciousness, what's going on in our world, um, and I was thinking about, and I've been musing on this for quite some time, is I'm very, very uncomfortable with, unhappy with, and unwilling to use the terms left and right.
Good for you.
I believe that those terms are fraught with way, way, way too many distinct understandings. And I notice oftentimes people will throw those words at each other, and neither the person calling the other guy right and the person calling the other guy left have the same understanding of those two words.
Absolutely. You just described almost every aspect or situational conversation we can get into.
Well, that gets into something we've talked about here before, which is I I have no way to make you hear me the way I intend to be heard, and vice versa. And so, just one of the things that I've been noodling is, what can we use to have conversations about these? Because there really are perspectives. Those perspectives are identifiable, and just like in the accountability practice, if I can tell the truth about what's really going on, I have access to deeper understanding, wisdom, and the capacity to change and grow. So, so that's one thing. And another thing that was an outgrowth of my own musings about this is I've noticed that we've been in this pandemic now for over 6 months, almost 7 months, and there really does seem to be a noticeable distinction between people that lean to one side of the political spectrum, how they behave and analyze what's going on, as opposed to people leaning to the other side of the perspective, seem to have a different understanding and a different prescription for what's the best way to manage what's going on. So that really intrigued me. That's been intriguing me since pretty much since after the first month or so, where everybody was more or less willing to cut everybody some slack and refrain from name calling and fault finding. But of course, we're less than a month away from a major election, so blame finding and fault finding is the order of the day. But um, what I want to talk about is I'm thinking about my own family. I'm the oldest of six. Everyone is still alive and well, and we get together on a regular basis. And most of my siblings lean in a different direction, different from the way I lean. And what I've noticed is that there is uh, a level of fear about the spread of the virus that is higher than my own level. Let's put it that way. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with taking precautions. It is an epidemic. In every epidemic in human history, people have taken precautions based on their level of scientific knowledge. Uh, thank God we're not in the period where we sacrifice people because we think the gods are angry, but
Yeah.
we still take precautions. But what I want to talk about is that I noticed that when most of my siblings talk about the people with whom they disagree, they employ a level of sarcasm and belittling and diminishing to the people that don't agree with them that takes my breath away. And so I was thinking about sarcasm, and I grew up in that same family, so I'm a master of sarcasm myself. I'm not, there's no blame or judgment here. I'm just noticing. So I was thinking about, when do I use sarcasm, and when have I historically used sarcasm? And what I find is that sarcasm is a beautiful tool to keep people away from me.
Mm-hmm.
Sarcasm is a perfect tool for isolating myself. And as we've shared it on podcasts before, I've come to understand that that comes from my foundational inner child defense mechanism that has to be alone in order to feel safe. In order to survive my family of origin, little Marty concluded that he's all alone, and everything is up to him, and he can't trust anybody to genuinely care for, love, or be on my side.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned sarcasm, and of course, my parents modeled it for me, and particularly on my dad's side, the family was very sarcastic. It was almost like you walked in the door and somebody had a sarcastic wisecrack to make. Something about the way you're dressed, the way your hair looks,
Yeah.
whatever. Um, and so it doesn't surprise me that we use this tool. What surprises me is that as I've done the work and I've been willing to own my inner sarcastic wit, um, I noticed that I don't use it as much. That doesn't mean that in any given situation that a sarcastic response doesn't necessarily rise to my mind, but it doesn't have the same energy anymore. And it's like I don't particularly feel compelled to use it.
Wow.
So I just wanted to raise that issue, sarcasm and the tools that we use to push each other apart, and the way that we do this individually, but we also do it collectively. And that much of what passes for our political discourse is actually just a series of sarcastic pushing each other away.
That's exactly what it is. It's an extension of the family of origin role-playing process, being pigeonholed into an identity. You're the good one, you're the bad one, and and then everything that comes along with that. In my family, I was the bad one. I was the scapegoat. So my sarcasm was about goody two shoes, or it was about I was proficient and prolific with sarcasm. And if you'd asked me at the time, I'd have told you that's funny. I'm just trying to be funny.
Yep.
And I used that as humor because I thought that's what humor was. You and I have both gone through the accountability process, creating intents, owning our projections, our shadow. So what I used to think was funny is no longer funny. And what is funny is that I thought I was a nice guy. Now that's funny. It's like that's hilarious. Um, and when I get insights into myself about my capacity to be dysfunctional, I can say I was thinking my capacity to hurt people. And where I find myself now, the humor is in the irony, internal irony, and it's a relieving it. And I also find myself at times, these are, and they're very far and few between, where I feel the sarcasm come up, and I just go, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that anymore. That's not what I want. What I want is to listen to this person and get to know this person, to share with this person, or whatever the situation. And they're all different situations. It could be family, could be colleague, could be somebody I'm talking to on the street, or a clerk. It's to connect with the person and affirm. And it's just my, not just, it's my default mode now. My default mode has been reprogrammed to um, sarcastic all the time, to no, I'm listening to this person. So there's, I just don't do it. And we're talking about the collective. The right, left, Republican, Democrat is a outcropping of that uh, dysfunction, and it's, you can see how systemic it is, and that's why you and I are talking about, okay, how do we include race consciousness, societal consciousness? How do we do this together? And it's something we're going to talk about and figure out, because I don't know. And I don't know means I'm open to all kinds of possibilities that may come up that don't match my frame of reference. Uh, I now know I have a frame of reference. So if I hear something, I don't automatically say, "Oh, that's stupid." I think, "Okay, what am I not hearing? What is it I'm not seeing? Um, what is my preconditioned belief about, say, altruism? What does that mean to me? Is it in alignment with honoring people's journey?" I mean, there's all kinds of questions now that I never even had before. So,
So in that spirit, I want to throw out a thought that I've been working on today, um, about the divide that seems to be there. And as I was working on this, I kept going inside myself, because if it's not true, if it's not a true divide in me, then it's not a true divide out there. So,
right.
because everything's a projection. And so everything, for those of you who are watching for the first time, what I say is going to come out of my own experience, my own beliefs, my own projections. I have no idea if it's true out there. And the only way that I can find out if anything that I believe is true is to go out and test it and ask questions and connect with people. So what I've been looking at, and as you know, I'm a student of history, and I've been studying this stuff for a long, long time. And you can go back to the dawn of human civilization, when, quote, religion, end quote, was first created by our ancestors, and you can find people were wrestling with these things even then. So there's nothing new under the sun. But we have this convention that I'm no longer willing to deal with, like I said, left and right. So I thought, well, what's the driving energetics here? And historically, the left has been where the critique of the current situation has come from, and the desire for improvement. And the right has generally been the skeptics that the proposed improvements will actually yield what is promised, as well as those who don't want to change at all.
Right.
So what's the way I've begun to see it is that essentially all human beings, including me, have a utopian desire. So my cleavage, or my theoretical cleavage, is the utopians and the non-utopians. And my internal utopian is the one who thinks that I could be better, I need to be better, has some kind of belief system of what better should look like, has a critique by which I determine my falling short of being better. Then there's, I'm going to call them the non-utopians. And the non-utopians are the ones who sort of say, I accept reality the way it is. And then you have the anti-utopians within the non-utopians, are the ones who want to stop and prevent that utopian perspective from having any validity whatsoever. And I see all of those in me. There's the, like I said, there's the part of me that yearns for not just improvement in a linear sense, but it yearns for a unity with the divine. It yearns for obliteration of all obstacles to the greatest possible consciousness. And then there's the part of me that says everything's already in divine order and perfect just the way it is. And this desire for improvement is just part of the deal. And then there's the part of me, the resistance that says, no, 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 no. This is my inner child says, no, I don't, no, 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 no change. Nope. It's where my sarcasm lives. Um, so that's my current walking around sense of the greater cleavage. There's nobility in the utopian energy. There's nobility in the, not just nobility, but there's truth in that desire to connect with the greater truth. And then there's the dysfunctional ways that we think about these things and go about them. So that's my opening gambit on this.
So I want to speak to what is the divide.
Okay.
It's I just wrote it down too. Um, it's a figment of the family of origin dysfunction trauma.
Right.
It doesn't exist, and it's metaphorical in the sense that it speaks to me about what's going on internally.
Right.
And I just pops into my head that question for me is, do I love myself or do I not? So I'm going to answer the question, I love myself, and what do I want in the context of intentional living and accountability? What do I want is to be at peace and live a life with an open heart and open mind. Now, in that changes the greater, the society, the I am part of the collective consciousness. So now the collective consciousness, based on what I just said, spoke out, is different. I intend to do that again. Yeah, so there is no, I don't know if I want to say that. I used to say in the jail, all violence comes from a figment of your imagination. Violence comes from controlling the other person outside of you because of your assumption of what their motivation is, without asking the other person what's your motive or what's going on with you. So violence comes from a figment of somebody's imagination. And I'm speaking to domestic violence, violence inside a family, violence in our government, any type of coercement or force. So I'm at an end of what I can think of right now. And I believe I spoke to the gap. Can I let me tell you this story. I was the only time I ever went to a protest was in Sacramento at the Justice Building, and it was during Bush's administration, and somebody had hung an art piece in the cafeteria with Bush painted his face in like an American flag, and he was like going down the toilet. So the people on the right said, you can't do that, that's bashing the president, take it down. People on the left said, no, leave it up, freedom of speech. So I went to the building, and on the left side of the door were the people on the left, on the right side of the door, people on the right. And we were yelling at each other, USA. And I thought to myself, what the heck is going on? we both want the same thing, and we're pointing at each other saying you're the problem when they are not. It's internal. Um, and if I go, I don't know if I'd go to a protest. If I go there, I'm gonna want to talk to the people on the other side and get to know who they're at, who they are, where they're at, what they need in their life, um, instead of yelling at them that they're stupid. It was two groups of grown people yelling at each other. You're stupid. No, you're stupid. Okay. No, I don't want to do that.
Well, there's another approach too to consider, which is that we approach the activity from neither side. Because I want to listen to both sides. Because you just said something interesting, which is we both want the same thing, and my immediate question is, how do we know that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I got to know it by watching two people yell at each other what they wanted, and it was USA, America, America first, America's great. And they were both yelling at each other, and it's like, uh, they want the same thing.
Right, but again, that's an assumption that may be accurate, but for me to know that, I'd actually have to sit down with people and ask them. Because what I know from accountability is that the issue is not the issue.
Right.
So in that case, when you look at all this energy that we've expended just in this year in protests on the street, I ask myself, what's the issue? What's the issue? Generally speaking, what is said to be the issue, just as is true for us as individuals, just ain't the truth. It's not true that that's the issue.
Yeah.
Our challenge is at a collective level, it's much more difficult to articulate the truth when most of us have difficulty at an individual level articulating that truth, answering that question without blame or judgment. It's the without blame or judgment dynamic that makes accountability practice possible.
Yes.
Because going back to the sarcasm energy, I was trained, and I have a master's, actually I have a doctorate in blame and judgment. And so I remember for the first few years when I was doing this work with you, John, I was having blame or judgment and still not aware of it.
Right.
Because it's so, quote, natural, or it's just part of the reticular activating system framework,
right,
that I can't see it because I'm looking through the frame, I'm not looking at the frame. And so that the challenge that we have collectively is to learn to be able to discern what we want. You said earlier, and I'm down with you on this, that you're interested in understanding how this collective consciousness works and how we access it. And I think we got to start by at least listing what we see the challenges to be. And we could be wrong about those. I'm willing to be wrong about all of it. But it's even, I noticed this in group work, that oftentimes, and you've described the whole dynamic of collusion, that oftentimes in a group, there's an unspoken agreement as to what will not be raised.
Yeah.
What cannot be said. And unless you have somebody who goes, well, why aren't we talking about this? It may not even be in the consciousness of any member of the group that this agreement has been made.
Yeah.
And so it seems to me that the group is the place where we can begin to experiment with looking at the collective, because you got 12 people in a room, that's a collective consciousness.
Okay, yeah.
And so you can begin to experiment with taking risks, because I would assert that the collusion comes in part from a collective, unspoken, unmade agreement that there's a configuration of the way we speak to each other that keeps all of us feeling safe.
Yeah.
And part of that for me is I don't want the group to break apart. I fear that if I cross a line, either I will be kicked out of the group or the group will be destroyed. And either way, I'm into abandonment.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
And there's only one way to find out, which is to ask the group. Now, I've been in smaller meetings with you and me and several others who have been practitioners of this work, and I've seen it happen, and I've felt the danger, even with you in the room, and even with other people that have been working on this for a long time. I could feel myself on edge. Oh my God. Oh my God. If I say or that person says the wrong thing, hell's going to break loose. And boy, isn't that my family of origin right there?
Yeah. 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 And here's what I know, that this group you're talking about, any group that comes together for organizational or conversation or to address matters or issues, um, um, is has this dynamic in it, like you're saying. I'm willing for the group to go away. I am willing for everybody to get up after I make a statement and go, "You're stupid, we're out of here." I'm willing to lose, to fail, and to look like a fool. And in that, there's this freedom of expression, of what we might even call challenging or confrontational. Um, um, and I use it when I do workshops. I'm willing for everybody in that workshop, once I explain accountability, to bust out laughing, fall over in their chairs, bring themselves up, and just walk out and have a merry good old time talking about me and how stupid I am. I'm willing for that to happen. And in that process, I'm out of right, wrong, good, bad. I know my value. It's here with me. No matter what happens, this value stays here. And I'm gonna say some pretty tough stuff, because breaking a paradigm or breaking into the to the status quo or what we understand to be right is dangerous. It's risky at best, dangerous at worst. Um, so yeah, that's glad we're talking about this, because it's good for me to hear myself say this.
Well, and the truth is that I choose to be willing to learn about myself,
Yes.
and I choose to be active in that learning rather than passive. So what that translates to is, even in a relationship of two people, I'm willing to cause upset here, and I'm not willing to not tell you the truth.
Yeah.
So learning to tell the truth becomes more important than defending a hypothetical, or use the word earlier here, a fictitious situation.
Right.
Because until I speak to you, till I raise something that I'm afraid you're going to have a negative reaction to, until I actually do it, your reaction is just, it's a thought in my mind. You're not a factor in it.
No. No.
And so I don't know. And I can tell you there are thousands of times in my life where I hesitated to speak up because I'd already written the script of what would happen if I said it. And the script was always negative.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I asked Dad for a raise in my allowance, he's going to say no. And he
You got
might
an
not just
allowance?
say no, but he might make a sarcastic comment.
I'm mad now. You got an allowance? It's like, uh, anyway, yeah. So yeah, take a risk. And there's the the divide is caused by the concept of right, wrong, good, bad. that one concept, well, sometimes I get absolute, but that's one of the concepts that if you look around at today's situation on the planet, is one of the major contributors. Is it right or is it wrong? Instead of asking the question, is this going to work for me or is this not going to work for me? And in that non-judgmental place, in that experiential place of me experiencing what happens based on a decision I make, and then deciding, ooh, I didn't like that, or ooh, I did like that, I'm going to do that again. And not couch it in the category of right, wrong, good, bad, intelligent, stupid. That's another one. Um, and um, if we could remove that one concept from our conversations, the change would happen. I don't know. It would be, well, it would be a different place shortly. Um, and
there's John the Utopian.
well, I'm not. I'm glad you said that because in this image I have in my mind is simply the next dilemma we're not working on because we're still working on this one. And I want to be in that conversation. I want to be in that conflict where I learn more about myself because I think this one place, enlightenment, is where I want to get and then I'll be good. No, as soon as I reach whatever stage of enlightenment I find myself, a whole world of dilemmas come into view so that I can now take on that challenge. So it's like this is exciting for me. It's not utopia. Nobody, I think Joseph Campbell says nobody wants a utopia. It's just it'd get boring after a while. I like conflict. You like conflict. Let's have some conflict and
Right.
grow.
But I
But
think that's the that's a valid and important insight because utopia is an illusion.
yes,
And so what's going on is there's battling illusions, and what we really want, the thing that we really want, which is inarticulable right now in our current culture, is we just want to be loved, and we want the opportunity to express ourselves authentically and in community with one another.
yeah, and I think one of the hindrances of that is that we think we're already doing it. We're acting from post-traumatic stress syndrome, which is a whole set of conditions about how I will act or react in any certain situation. Then we claim it as choice, which there was no choice in it whatsoever, and then we argue about choice. And it's like we've never got to choice in the first place.
Right.
If you've got out of the concept of right, wrong, I belong, I don't belong. Yeah, so it is challenging.
You know, it's kind of interesting to me as a student of history that the experiment that we're now in the 250th year of self-government is demanding of us to basically grow up and to take on these challenges, because the challenges of self-actualization, the challenges that we work on in our accountability practice, the letting go of, let's say, the healing of the childhood trauma so that I'm free to make adult decisions based on what I want today, and to
Hmm.
be able to have a mature and effective assessment of does it work, does it not work, as you said a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
So our founding fathers, many of them said, if we can't inculcate what they called civic virtue, if we can't inculcate a sense of virtue in the citizenry, this thing ain't going to work. And part of the debate that's raged for the past 250 years is whose job is it to inculcate that sense of individual responsibility, civic responsibility, and we haven't answered that.
I think we'll find out when we get there. We'll
Right,
find out.
we're still experimenting.
Yeah, yeah. Once we get there, we'll know that. Uh, hey, thanks for growing that. because I didn't grow tomatoes this season. This this thing that the common denominator is that people are evil is like crap. It's like, are you kidding? If we're always coming from that, then yeah, let's work real hard to find value. And it's like, or values. Um, and once we're set into our own volition, and I mean, there's probably examples of it already all around. I can't think of any specific one right now. Maybe corporations that are employee owned or that are thriving and doing good on the planet and helping their owners, employees thrive. I mean, we have already experienced it, but with the blinders of post-traumatic stress, complicated post-traumatic stress, we don't see it, and then we got to fight. We got to like figure out what that is, and then fight for it, and just take a breath. Everything's okay. I've been lied to about who I am and how it works. What's the truth about who I am and how I relate to the rest of the world? And just take a breath and let's talk.
Yeah.
Now you get a Trumpster and a Bidenite to sit down and get together and even have that, or maybe listen to you and I have that conversation. Maybe something will happen, but I don't. Right now, it's polarized, and there's being where we're at is part of the process of maturation. I remember as a kid going through some pretty um, rough times. So
Well, I agree. I think there's power in being willing to, maybe on a collective level, to say what you said earlier. So maybe we're willing to fail.
yeah,
We're willing to mess up.
hmm willing to
Uh,
be wrong, willing to fail, and willing to look like a fool, and see what happens. Because I would talk to the men in jail, and they were definitely not willing to be wrong. They did want to be wrong. They didn't want to fail, and they didn't want to look foolish. And all of them sat there in some freaky looking, all the same colored shirts, saying, "I don't want to be wrong, fail, or look like a fool." And I said, "Well, too late." I mean, try the willingness to be wrong, fail, and look like a fool, and see if any of this changes. And some of them did, and they're thriving now. They're wearing a colored shirt that they pick. They're not wearing white or orange or anyway.
right, and they don't live in an environment where someone else makes all their decisions for them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's all just part of the great ongoingness. Um, I can just speak for myself. I can own my own level of discomfort with what's going on, and I can continually look for my projections into the situation. And because I tell you what, it's easy. I'm easily triggered by what's going on.
One of
And
the questions, Marty, I find myself asking in like looking at the political issue is, what is it I don't know? What is it I'm not aware of? How can somebody diametrically opposed to what I know is perfection or better, at least better, stand there and look at me and say the things they say? I want to know how that happens. Um, so in the reality of my life, I started talking to people about what's going on with you? How come? Why do you see this the way you see it? What am I missing? And I'm telling you, it was a thrilling experience because I missed everything that they were saying from instead of like filtering it through my liberal progressive, everybody's needs to be helped, and I'm the one that's going to take all the credit for it, or I'm the one that's going to help other people help people. It's like I was actually the problem. That ideology was actually the problem. And this is not way back in my history. It's like, wow, I want to know what I don't know. And what that does for me to see the difference in that is to maintain that position of willingness to be wrong, fail, and look like a fool, and know even now, especially now that I think I've figured something out, that there's something I don't know. I want to add that to me.
Well, and the good news is there's always something I don't know.
The good news is I got job security in this area.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So
But there are some things that we can test. Um, as you know, I'm a student of Ken Wilber, and one of the things I learned from him is that most of the things that we call beliefs are um, essentially grooves in our consciousness, and they're grooves in our consciousness because we just reinforce the same thing over and over and over again.
yeah,
And so we have the capacity to become aware that this is the case, and we can create different grooves in our consciousness. So essentially, from a Wilberian perspective, setting an intention is activating different network in my brain. I'm changing the network of my beliefs. I'm abandoning one that didn't work for one that I really want.
yeah,
And so the opportunity always is to hold those new grooves that we're creating more lightly than we held the earlier ones, because the earlier ones, for me anyway, they're very, very stubborn, and they're difficult to change quickly. And I don't want that in the future. I'm willing to have new beliefs and understandings, but I'm willing to hold them more lightly than I did in the past, because new evidence is going to come along inevitably that may make me move in a completely different direction.
yeah,
And I want to be able to do that more nimbly than I have in the past. It may never happen, but I want to be open. I choose to be open to that.
yeah, um, yeah. I, I'm right now. I don't know what to say. So, and I do want to link this conversation back to accountability or the path. Another way to say the accountability process for me is it's I use accountability as a tool to manifest authenticity, whatever that is, and um, it's part of the tool. And then there's the four constants of relationship: move towards your pain, own your projections. What are you focused on today? I intend to. Um, has given me, and I'm going to speak for you if that's okay, an opening into allowing new things coming into new pathways. In that experience of allowing new perspectives and new, actually, I created access to my um, essence of who I am, which isn't complete, and thank God, because I want to keep doing this for a long time. Um, that I'm the tools in the accountability tool and looking at how I project and creating intents have given me this freedom of expression that I could not have gotten any other way. It's given me the wherewithal to see, instead of speaking to the problem, that I encourage people to speak to, let's talk about solution. I get right is right, left is left. They both suck. And according to what side you're on, the other side sucks more. And what is it I need to know to contribute the best I can to myself first, and then in that I contribute to my community. So, um,
Yeah, by virtue of our interconnectedness, those are the same activities.
mm-hmm,
However, the focus is on the self, and when I heal, then healing is occurring outside of me as well. but my focus is healing what's inside.
Yes. Yeah. It's the building the capacity for compassion.
Yep.
And now that I've said that word, um, compassion used. I got the picture of Buddha sitting under a tree with his, you know, in a mudra, and that everything. It's like my experience of compassion today is my capacity to say firmly and succinctly, no, I will not do that, or no, I'm not participating with you, or compassionately and succinctly, are you open for my feedback, which is um, you're a bully, to, and with the agreement that the other person I'm talking to, we're talking about healing, and there's an agreement there. Otherwise, I wouldn't call anybody anything they didn't want to be called. If there's an agreement that we talk together, the compassion I have is for me to state the truth about what I see in you, which is really me. I know bully. You're a bully for the purposes of healing and insight. And compassion is strength. Um, compassion is don't. Um, it's like coming face to face with a lion. You know exactly what's going on. You know exactly where you stand, and there's no equivocation. And the lion doesn't have to like tell you I'm a badass. He just everybody knows it. It's just the energy that he holds. So compassion is a powerful, powerful thing, and it's gentle and loving all at the same time.
If you're open to some feedback on that,
I am.
I also think compassion is the capacity to identify as human, and in the identification of that, to see all humans as equally human,
Yes.
and to appreciate that, to
Mm-hmm.
revel in that, as you said in other occasions, to revel in our character defects, because that's part of our humanity,
Mm-hmm.
to find joy rather than fear in these tendencies that I have a love equals that keeps me isolated, um, to be misled by my belief system, to
Mm-hmm.
project onto other people things that are truly my own. Like, oh, I see, I'm being human.
Yeah.
And so that's why I said earlier, when I see two sides of a political argument, I want to be at this place that asks what's everybody up to, because those two sides are me.
Yes. And the two sides that we're talking about on the political side, my picture is highly polarized. Um, Let me speak my truth to this difference between Democrat, Republican, and I'm going to say, in what I found in me is an idealist, a person who has the capacity to see a big picture in a framework that is I can articulate it to people looking for something. On the other side of the spectrum is a scientist. Now, for me to live in a balanced world, I need the scientist to kind of like temper some of my idealistic ideas. And the scientist, what I would offer, of course, it's up to him, might see my contribution of some kind of taking the edge off of all the corners valuable to him. And in the middle is this life we're going to live together, knowing that each other contributes. And that if me left to my own devices is not a good idea. It's not a good idea because I need paper to write on. I need people to like make pens and like run the stores. And if everybody was on my side, we'd all be sitting, barbecuing and eating Haagen
Right,
Dazs.
and your toilets wouldn't flush.
And the toilets wouldn't flush. So everybody's in this synchronistic. I get to do what I love to do, or I get to do what's easy for me, or I get to contribute in my way, and then we'll see what happens. It's like everybody wants to say that will be, and then describe it. I don't know. That will be when something else comes up, so that we can address whatever that is. It'll not be the end, the utopia, the finally we got it, everybody's in the right place. It'll not be any of that. It'll be another set of dilemmas that I get to work on at that level. And I want to call that, for me, my personal goal or longing is the Christ consciousness level. I would like to be in a room full of Christ consciousness people talking about what's there. What do we do now? I mean, what's happening? How do we contribute? Because everybody at Christ consciousness doesn't mean utopia. It means the issues are bigger. The issues are more profound, or they're just simply the ones that are here now that we're misnaming, and we get some clarity on it. I don't know. I want to be there though.
I want to offer that the mystics say that when we're at that level of the Christ consciousness, the divine consciousness, whatever, we're at the level where there's no longer duality. And therefore, what at this level we call work becomes play.
Okay, that sounds good.
So you're in that room with those people at that level of consciousness, and what you're doing is you're just playing.
Yeah.
You're playing at creating shit consciously. That's the way I understand it. But I'm a limited human being, so I could be wrong.
Yeah,
I'm willing to look like a fool.
Well, that sounds interesting to me. And if that's it, yeah, let's do that. Let's play that. Whatever that play means. But yeah, I don't know, and I want to be there.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that to consider the possibility that from the perspective that we adopt in doing this work, we're already in a utopia. Everything is already perfect just the way it is.
Yeah, and it hurts.
And it hurts.
At times, and it's uncomfortable at times, and it's this bliss moment. Like, come over to my daughter's house and watch me and my 5-year-old grandson play war with a deck of cards. It is hilarious. That kid is hilarious, and I'm teaching him to slap the table and trash talk. And we're just having 3 hours yesterday. War. It was phenomenal. It was just incredible. I had so much fun with that little guy. So
you put me in mind of a time when I was with my nephews who were probably just a little bit older than that. I taught them to play blackjack, and then we couldn't stop playing blackjack.
Yeah.
Okay, one more time, one more hand.
Yeah.
And they were doing the trash talking and everything. So yeah, that's play. But this is play too. I mean, I have that very serious demeanor, the get down to business persona. But if I step back a little bit, I can see that as play as well.
Yeah.
It's just like adopting a role,
putting
on a mask, take this off, put on another one, whatever. What do you want to do? And that's the freedom that I've created through my intention. I intend to experience life as joy, peace, freedom, and community. And freedom gives me the space to try different things, including to make mistakes and to look like a fool and so forth. And go, oh, well, I didn't see that coming.
Right. Cool.
Yeah, through most of my day, what shows up I didn't see coming.
So how do we do? Did we? I'm thinking. Did we speak to the divide? To the.
Well, can I tell you what I learned?
Okay.
So what I learned is that the way I initially thought about this has it got changed by listening to you. And so what I'm now willing to say is that the divide is an illusion based on the kinds of mistaken assumptions that I made in my family of origin.
Yeah.
And more than that, I still need to learn and review, but that I came into the conversation with the mistaken assumption that the divide is real. And when you said violence comes from a figment of your imagination,
Yeah.
that was like, yeah, and this divide comes from a figment of my imagination as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And that the healing comes from the willingness, is always with accountability, to go to what's the truth, what's really going on. And at the level of community, at the level of country, I really don't know the answer to that question.
That's an interesting point when you said get to the truth. Here's what my truth is, what I consider truth or my truth. Actually, whatever it is, starts with I am.
Yep.
And my truth changes with my growth and the seasons.
Yep.
Um, my truth is plastic. At the moment I say the truth, it is absolute. And it's my truth. Most people talk about truth like, let me really tell you what I think of you and not have to suffer any consequences. That's my truth. It's like, no, that's you being sarcastic, or that's you being rude, or that's you um, um,
Creating separation.
stuck in right and wrong and wanting to prove your point by using uh, spiritual terminology so that you could spit your poison. Anyway, I'm thinking a whole lot of people in my mind when I say that.
I think I know some of them.
And um, it's like, no, the truth starts with I am. If I say I am arrogant, you can tell me I'm not? I mean, go ahead. I just said I am. It's like, that's my truth. And in that truth, there's a feeling tone quality, this awareness place that goes, wow. And then a recognition of what that's brought me throughout my life. And it's like, I'm not saying my whole life passes in front of me, but I get information about the truth of my arrogance. And in that truth, that frequency, it is my intent to be kind, or is my intent to be assertive, or is my intent to be loving, actually is in a, becomes able to be embodied in me. And that embodiment doesn't come from me being good. It comes from me telling the truth of what happened to me. Family of origin, dysfunction, trauma created arrogance. That's in alignment with the trauma. Um, it is it right, wrong? When I judge it right or wrong, I lose the ability to feel that. Now, does it hurt? Yes. Did it cause separation? Yes. Did it cause trauma in other people? Yes. And what do I want now? I gotta. I know exactly where I'm at. Arrogance. Ooh, no. It is my intent to be kind and loving. Or is my if I'm thinking specifically about my children, it is my intent to be a loving, caring, nurturing father. If I'm thinking specifically about my partner, it is my intent to be a loving, caring, nurturing spouse. It is specific to my situation, my truth, my situation, and um, what what Christ said, the truth will set you free. And I've been looking for that, and like finding out the right way to do shit, and that doesn't exist. When the simple truth was I am, and that changed everything because it gave me options. That truth gave me options that I didn't have before that truth. Before it was your problem that you didn't like what I say because I'm just being truthful. And I have this thing: truth without compassion is cruelty. Truth with compassion is honesty. So I've developed that through the willingness to say the truth about where I find myself: mean, entitled, arrogant, controlling, needy. That was a difficult one for me. I am needy. Oh, no, no, no. Based on where I'm at, I'm needy. So what do I want? It's my intent to be authentic. It is my intent to be autonomous. It is my intent to be self-actualized, um, powerful,
Self-sufficient.
self-sufficient, rely on my own capacity to see what's going around and make my own decisions instead of asking everybody on the planet, what should I do? and then doing it and then blaming all the ones that said, gave me the advice to do that because it sucks. I just like, I don't feel good still. So tell me what to do now. No, I don't want that.
Well, it's time to wrap things up, but I just want to point out that you basically, I heard Benjamin Franklin talking 250 years ago about citizenship, what it takes to create a republic where we govern ourselves. It takes that level of self-knowledge and self-awareness. And so I really I heard through you the wisdom of all those who have advocated on behalf of this path for human beings. Back through Jesus, the Buddha, the Vedas, the Egyptians, people who have taught us, they lit the way for us.
Yeah.
And a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of hurt, like you said. It hurts. But I'm grateful for these insights. I'm grateful for the very simple and direct method that you've been working on and sharing with people for the last quarter century. And I look forward to more.
Yeah, me too. Me too, Marty. Yeah, cool.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome, Marty.
Say hi to Solomon for us.
I will.